Okay, how's that? I think it's a little better. Okay. I don't like that brief. Okay, welcome to our meeting of the James River Camera Club. So first thing, we have some new members who are actually attending. Yay! So you want to stand up, tell us who you are and what you do?
I did this on Zoom already.
Yes, but you'll get to do it twice.
Do it again. My name's Becky, and I think I'm really interested just in learning what I can, because I retired not that long ago, and travel is the plan, and it's past time for me to get a decent camera. And cameras have changed a lot since last one. So I thought I'd come to the experts, and I live right around the corner here, so pleased to meet you.
Welcome. Anybody else new or relatively new?
Maureen's granddaughter.
Yeah, Maureen's granddaughter. Yes. Stand up and say hello. Who's the best grandfather in the world? There he is. Okay.
I'm Katie. And that's my grandpa.
Very well done.
She has natural artistic abilities for drawing and sketching and stuff like that. She takes art lessons online.
Cool.
And a lady that actually, she goes to church with me here, and a lady that actually does some amazing drawing and painting. Hooked her up with a woman that does Zoom classes for art. So she takes classes twice a month, and went to a art exhibit a couple of weeks ago with this lady. And she was telling me about all the cool photography they had in addition to sculptures and pen and ink and all that stuff. And it really intrigued her. So she asked me, did I know anybody that took pictures? And I said, the camera club, not me. So I'm going to try to bring her on and help her just develop. I think she'll have a good eye. It's just a matter of teaching her the basics of cameras. So I figured I'd bring her tonight with me. See what she thought.
Thank you. Thank you. And let's see. And we have I know we have one member with an announcement.
It could wait, until the potluck.
All right. Carrie has an announcement.
As you know, I take dog photography, win photos and candidates and everything. And a couple months ago, I got asked to do a photo shoot for a lady who's campaigning her dog. And my photo ended up in my first ad. That was from the photo shoot. So
Recognition.
my first ad.
Did you get paid for that? Did you get paid for that?
I got paid for the photo shoot.
Yeah, you go.
What is published in it?
It's published in a dog magazine. These are magazines. I have two more in the car if anybody wants to look at them. These are used to showcase dogs that are currently showing in campaigning for #1 status in the country.
Okay,
So,
well, good. But you should tell us about your New York photo.
which New York?
About your dog, the happy, the one on the happy face or something. Did you want the contest one?
Oh,
I don't think that they know that it is on the wall.
all right. So I don't have. It would take me some time to pull it up. One of my photos got purchased to be used as an art installation in the lobby of a residential building in Manhattan. Yeah. So.
All right. Any other announcements or or fun things that people have done that deserves mention? Like gone somewhere, taken a great photo, or found a good wine or something like that. But we're ecumenical here.
Mine is always crazy dog photos, that's just, it never changes.
Oh, and just wanted to say, Kemp, thank you for organizing the trip to the Keystone Antique Truck and Tractor Museum. That was very, very good. If you guys get a chance to go up there, if you haven't been there, it's a very, very large facility. Lots of amazing equipment and cars and tools and stuff. And it's a great photo opportunity, and they allow you to use a tripod. So you can set up your tripod and take your photos there. So it's $10 for an adult, $9 for seniors over 62. So if you get a chance to go up, it's well worth the time.
And how is the tour? Do you have a guide tour?
Yes, another Kemp special. We did a tour of the Torgler Gallery for the Ansel Adams exhibit, and we had a guide take us through. She was the
education manager
for the Torgler. She was very, very good, very knowledgeable about the ins and outs. And there were, I think it was 82 of his photographs on display, which is the most of his I've ever seen. In one place.
May 5th, Saturday, I think it's the last day. Yeah,
March 5th is the last day, so.
On the Ansel Adams thing, I took my granddaughters because they wanted to go.
Yeah.
And they had, they were working on the flowers upstairs on the thing. They were all working, so they were really pretty coming down and just bouncing around. We got videos and odds and ends with it, so that was pretty too.
Yeah.
And
the Torgler atrium has I guess it's a movable sculpture made by a Dutch firm. It was supposed to be a short-term exhibit. And they loved it so much that a donor came forth and bought it for them. And so now it's permanent in there. Were they supposed to be flowers? They're coming, simulate flowers coming down. I thought they would look like jellyfish.
The day that we went prior to this, they were opening, and they looked like jellyfish mice. Yeah.
All right, so first thing we're gonna do tonight is our photo contest. So let me bring this up, and then Kemp will allow me to show my screen. Yeah, man. Maybe. There you go. Let me do this first. That. All right, here we go. So this is our monthly meeting for March, and we're going to go through. We had quite a few entries this month, quite a few good entries, and the voting was close. So we'll go through that. So this month's contest, our theme was bicycles, bicycle parts, or bicycle riders, and we also had our open category. So here's our entries for the theme. This was Leah Columbus. That's our daughter and our grandson in the backyard. Can you see that, or is it too late?
I was trying to obviously take the lights. So let's see. That's
What?
that's the mom's. How's that? Is that one good or not?
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay for Zoom people?
Yeah, the Zoom people, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see fine because the lights don't affect now.
Okay. This one is Phyllis's entry. Very nice shot, Phyllis.
Let's answer them.
Yep. And this was Carrie DeJan's photograph. That's out in New York, isn't it?
Yeah, it was Manhattan.
This is Kemp's. Very creative shot. Tom, Carmine.
Where did you take
Yeah,
that?
where was that taken?
Yeah, fuck it.
Oh, really? This was Chan. Is Chan here tonight? No, I don't think he's here tonight. No idea where he took this. It looks like India, but I'm not gonna. It's not downtown Newport News, that's for sure. This is mine. Don't go. I tricked you, Carrie. This is done at the Outer Banks in front of Bonzer's Shack. I don't know why it's still there. This is John Murphy's, and this is Tom tells me that Ultegra is Italian for very expensive bike part.
Now, Dura Ace at the top of the line. Oh, yeah,
And the final one was Steve LaFay's.
that's actually my bike.
What, this one right here?
The one before,
Okay.
titanium Syrah.
And this was Steve's bicycle tires. I really like the way he colored this. This was really, really good. So the results are, third place was Phyllis. Congratulations, Phyllis. Second place was Steve. I really like what he did with this. This was very good. And first place, it's a tie. Carrie. And me.
Very nice.
So congratulations to everybody. They were all really good photos. I was very pleased. Okay, next are our open entries. First one is Carrie. And you explained this to me at another place, so you want to give a word about what
So
it is?
this was taken at the New York Botanical Gardens during their light show for the winter. I forget the name of the show. And it just struck me. I turned around and I saw this lady, and she was just by herself, and then everybody else was off by the side. And it's hard to see on this screen, but I left the hair red, and I used the topic of tonight's class. I did a masking technique using Lightroom to just leave her hair red, and then turn the rest of it black and white.
Next one is mine. For those of you that don't know, in 2003, in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, they bought, and we don't know the exact number. Some people say it was about 100. Other sources say it was in the 40s. These fiberglass horses that were actually winged horses. They were Pegasus, to mark the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of the first flight. And a whole bunch of businesses down there pitched in and had them decorated. And some of them still exist. We managed to find, how many was it we found?
10 or 11.
We found about 10 or 11 so far, and we'd like to get down there and try to find them. So this one's in front of the City Hall in Kill Devil Hills.
They clip their wings.
Well, some of them have seen better days. Some are in really good shape, and others are really, really bad. This one lost its wings. You can see.
Good repair.
Yeah, you can see on the shoulder of the horse and his front shoulder, that repair mark. That's where the wings used to attach. This was Phyllis. Where was this taken, Phyllis?
The flower market in Amsterdam.
Okay. This was John Murphy, and if you look closely, the two birds are fighting over a fish. So, good capture. This is Tom. Where was this taken, Tom?
Ukiah Falls and Blackwater State Park, West Virginia.
Beautiful shot. This one is Leah Columbus. Where was this shot taken?
Denby Pier.
Exotic Denby Pier, yes. processed in Lightroom.
A lot of people taking pictures, they all seem to know each other, so there's like a group of people, you know, and take pictures of sunsets.
This was Chan Parks, and I have no idea where this was, where he took it. This was Steve's. Steve was there. By the way, I checked the metadata. iPhone shot. And this is Kemp's. I like this one. This was at the Torgler. And just as an aside, this guy was not part of our tour. He was on another tour. He is a sketch artist. And he is going around and he was sketching some of the photos to use for later. And at one point, there's a book sitting there and Leah sits down and she picks it up and she starts going through it. He walked over and said, "Excuse me, that's mine." we thought it was part of the exhibit, but it wasn't. Okay,
No, and it's just,
so the results are third place, Karen. It's like she's buying the beer later. Second place, John. And first place, Chan Park. And there are no trained squirrels to be seen in this photo. I just want everybody to know that. I'm sure there's one hiding.
He drowned.
He drowned. This is the resting place of the squirrel. Okay, so next month, it should be April, I'm sorry. It'll be tools of the trade, and it can be any tools, any trade. So take your pick. Open as always is anything else, and we actually have almost a full month to get your photographs in for the first time in about 3 months, I think. So March 29th is the entry deadline. Oh, and one other thing I need to mention, Meetup, where we put the albums for the photos, has a 24 megapixel limit and a 15 megabyte limit. So when you submit your photos, try to I mean, I can resize them if I have to, but I would just as soon have you resize them before you send them in so that you're happy with it. I mean, you may not be happy with what I do or, you know, how I resize it. So keep those in mind and check the metadata of your photos before you send them in. All right. And so this is the email address for the entries. Just go out there, shoot some photos, and go back through your archives and find some good photos to send in. All right. So that's the end of that. And I'm going to do. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add at this point? Nothing. Okay. All right. I'm going to bring up. Let me just share and reopen my screen sharing. How do I reopen this?
Do a new share.
Stop share, and I will do it. All right. Okay, we're gonna talk, and Carrie mentioned it already. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of the new features, or relatively new features in Lightroom that we can use to edit and mask our photos. And I also brought up here Photoshop, because in Photoshop, look familiar, Carrie?
Yeah.
But in Photoshop, the exact same masking features are found in Photoshop that you find in the develop module of Lightroom. They're exactly the same. They don't look the same, but they're the same. You use a camera raw filter. And this is not coming out the way I hoped it would. Close it. Anyway, I'll try to find that later and show it. But basically, what you're going to see in Lightroom, you can also do in Photoshop, and they're exactly the same. Adobe seems to be moving their products closer and closer. So a lot of the things that used to be only in Photoshop, you can now do in Lightroom. So I'm going to show just a few of the tools that are available in Lightroom for masking. And I hope I get these right. That sometimes gets tricky. So, but the first thing I want to show, we open this up and we go to the develop module of Lightroom. So this is just a stock photo that I stole off the web. Here, this little gray circle with the white dots around it, that's your masking function in Lightroom. So when I press that, it brings up the masking tool. And the interesting thing that they've done, in addition to the typical things that they used to have of a brush, a linear gradient, a radial gradient, they've added a whole bunch of AI type of tools. And you'll notice down at the bottom, it says people. And if you notice, the AI has picked up all the 3 people in the photograph automatically. And I can select any one of them or all of them just by clicking the button. Now, the one thing you have to look at, and you look at carefully, is if you'll notice here, this hand, the AI thinks this hand belongs to the guy. You see the way it's red, the overlay? That tells you that it thinks that hand is part of the guy. So you're going to have, if you do mask it, you're going to have to modify the mask with some of the other tools. The other thing you can do is select the background. If there was sky in the image, you could select the sky. And you can also select the subject, which in this case would be the same 3 people. So I'll show you on this first person here. We'll select him. And if you notice, it gives us several options. If we just want to mask the person, we can just select that and we can play with that image and modify it in Lightroom. But we also now have the ability to select his facial skin, his body skin. In this case, it's picked his neck, and you can see it's got the hand that doesn't belong there. His eyebrows. You can actually mask the eyebrows individually. The eye sclera, which is the whites, just the whites of the eyes. If we zoom in on this a little bit. Move this over. See, the whites of his eyes would be selected if I just want to edit the whites of his eyes. The irises and pupils of his eyes are masked automatically. His lips, if he had teeth showing, it would select them, and his hair. So we can select all of these automatically. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each one of these, even though there are some of them aren't eligible. But if you look down at the bottom, I have another option here. You notice I can create 8 separate masks for that guy. So if I do create mask, here it has on this panel right here, it has created all these different masks for the individual. So here's the person's face. And then I can use this panel down here to adjust. And you notice when I click on one of the sliders, the masking overlay goes away. And you see, I can adjust, and I'm just going to slide these things back and forth. But you can see it's just his face that's being modified. Once again, just his face is being modified. So all through this is just the mask of his face, and you can play. You can make him purple or green or whatever color you want, and then you can modify things like texture and clarity, the haze, and all the other stuff. So that's the face. This is his body skin. That's the skin on his neck. You can use that, especially if you want to soften the features. Good for wrinkle removal. It's not permanent, unfortunately. You can adjust his eyebrows. The whites of his eyes. I mean, everything that you want to look at and fix in that. Here's the iris and the pupils. It'll adjust the color of his eyes and how dark and how light they are. Another thing that you can look at is, if you look at the overlay, you can modify the way the overlay looks. And you can see it's white on black. You can see the image on white, and I've selected let me select this one so you can see a little better. This is his hair. You can see the image, that's the mask, that's what's actually masked, that's what you're going to change, showing it white on black. This is the image in black and white with the mask. Color overlay on the black and white, and then you can also change the color of the overlay. If you don't like the red overlay, you can change it to blue or whatever color you want. And then this is just the standard color overlay. And if you have any questions at any time, just speak up. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to delete all the masks that we have here. And one of the things we can also do on this one is, let's say you want to change the color of the background. In this case, we just select the background. You see it selects it, and then you can go in, since it's now masked, and in the color, you can change the colors that show up in the background. So you have a lot of control over these different aspects of the photo.
Yeah, that background, can you do it like hot pink or?
You can do whatever you want.
Oh, okay, because you just had a lot of snow, right? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there's a lot more you can do that I don't really have the skills to do.
It'll show up in their hair.
Yeah.
Can you make it transparent?
You can select it. No, you can't make it transparent. You would have to do a selection and then delete it. For something like that, I'd probably take it into Photoshop where you can do layers and yeah, be safer that way. You have less likelihood of permanently destroying your photo.
To do that, you go to the selection inward, just 1 or 2 pixels, so it gets those fringes in your hair and around the body and stuff like that. Otherwise, it'll show up.
And here's another photo. And once again, there we go. Okay, here we go. This, I brought this one in. At first, I was going to do something really clever with it. But then I realized that it taught me something about the masking tools. Sometimes, depending on the photo, they're just not going to work. Like on this one, if I say, let's select the subject. Now, what do you think the subject is going to be in this photo? It's kind of,
I already know.
It's going to be the girl, right? If I say select subject, that's all it got was her forehead, her hair. It didn't select anything else. I don't know why, it just won't find it. If I say select the background, it selected something over here. It did select the background, but it also selected her. And for some reason, perhaps the borders are just not distinct enough from the background and from each other, but it's just not going to select. So sometimes you're going to run into cases where it just doesn't want to do what you want it to do.
Nope.
Yep.
When I took a couple of math classes, Kuskowski's classes, it's the contrast between the background and what she's wearing and the background and that ball is not enough for the AI driven.
Yep.
That it picks it up. It's got to be a distinct contrast between the two. Otherwise, the AI driven engine can't pick it up.
Can't find it. Yep.
And
It won't.
they had a discussion with Julianne Close. I think the way you pronounce her name.
Yep.
The lead programmer for Adobe. And she said they're working on it. They know it's an issue, but she said the code involved to do that is yeah, it's huge.
It sometimes won't pick up animals either.
Okay, the next thing I'm going to show now, this is one of the features that I didn't realize it existed at first. And I've already done it on this photo for another thing, but I'm going to try and duplicate it. So I'm going to create a new mask and I'm going to do a linear gradient because what I want to do is I want to make the little fluffy, what is that stuff called? The tinsel. I want to make that sparkle a little. So I'm going to take a linear gradient and I'm going to put it like over top of that. And I can get in there and I can, start adjusting it, but it's going to affect everything from that top line right about here all the way down. If I brighten, if I change exposure, I do anything, it's going to affect that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to intersect this mask with a luminance range. And it gives me a little picker. And I'm saying, I want stuff that's about that brightness and the linear gradient to work together. And you see all of a sudden, the mask doesn't affect much of this area down here, but it does affect this particular piece of the photograph. So if I change the exposure, you see the exposure is only affecting things in the same luminance range. Now, interestingly enough, it includes the snowflake. I could brush that out. I could do a subtract with the brush and take that out. But you see, I can change the exposure just of the intersection of those two functions, the linear gradient and the luminance. And I can also add additional things. I can add additional things that it'll intersect with. And I can change all the variables here. And you notice it's just affecting the things that are brighter than the overall background. So the snowflake, the tinsel, all that other stuff. Those are the intersection of those things is what makes the mask work. And so the interesting thing about that is, the kind of stuff that you can do when you're applying a big gradient, like a radial gradient or a linear, and then using either, if you notice there was I can intersect it with, and you can intersect it with anything. Any one of these other filters, any one of these existing filters, you can add that or it'll also subtract it from the filter. So you have multiple ways you can use that filter. Now this one, I've already done the filter on this one. Everybody knows this particular carriage out there at Colonial Williamsburg. Now, one of the things that you could say is, well, boy, it'd be nice to change the color of that thing, or sharpen it up, or change the exposure on it. So you could say, I'm going to create a new mask here. Hello. Hang on. Let me turn this one off. Create a new mask. And I'm going to say, let me select the subject. And okay, did a pretty good job. However, it's got the horses, it's got the driver, it's got the lady in the back seat, and it missed part of the carriage on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add with a brush to the mask. And I'm just going to paint in here, and I'm going to take that, and some of the wheels weren't done, and you notice I'm painting over top of the background. So it's all in there, So now if I were to try to change this, see, the horses would change, and the carriage, and the spaces between the wheels, and you say, oh, that doesn't look very good. But I'm going to intersect this mask with a color range. And I'm going to pick this color. And so now, because it's only affecting, it's all that area, but it's only going to affect the things that are that color. So you notice now, the spaces between the spokes is not affected because it doesn't match the color range. That intersection of subject and color is the only thing affected. So the spaces between the spokes aren't adjusted. Just the carriage is adjusted. A little bit of a horse, but not too much. And then, of course, you can play with color. So if you want to make that thing purple, you can do that. And once again, I mean, it screwed up a little bit, and you can go in with a brush and clean that mask up a little later. But basically, all the hard work of what is or isn't in the masked area is taken care of by the AI. All you have to do is clean up around the edges and take care of the details. Which I thought was a pretty interesting feature of the new program. And I did the same thing with this one. And this, once again, is the same sort of thing where you have a mask with a linear gradient and a color range. And what I wanted to do was keep the color red in the sky and be able then to play with these, if you look, the big linear gradient up at the top is affecting the clouds, but it's really not affecting the reds. So I took the reds out of what the gradient would affect. And so only the clouds are affected and the reds are kind of on their own. Now this is a shot, golden hour shot. It's really good. And if you look at this, I mean, it came out pretty good. But this was the original. You notice you can't see what's in Leah's hand. Now I'm going to show you what I did. I'm going to turn the masks back on. I'm going to turn these off. but looking at that the first time, I said, you know, you really can't, she's holding the camera, you really can't see it that much. So I said, I'm going to select an object. And when you select the object, you can use a number of different ways to select that. I'm going to use just a square box selection tool. I'm like a marquee selection tool. And now you notice I've got part of her hand. You look closely, it just mainly selected the camera. It avoided her hand for the most part. And I'm going to subtract with a brush this stuff here, this on her hand. And then when you adjust the exposure, you can see the camera. So it was able to figure out what was human hand and what was camera, and it picked the camera. So it gives you, the AI gives you lots of interesting tools and ways to modify the photographs with the masking tools that we never had before or took forever to do by hand with a brush. And the final one we're going to look at, and this one that once again is I had this on my big monitor, so it's hard to adjust sometimes. This one was another one I wanted to point out on the people selection, how when you're doing it, you have to be really careful. So that girl in the lower left of the photograph, if it goes to select her, you notice it has selected the arm that belongs to the other girl. So when you're doing your selection, so I create the mask, I have to subtract with a brush the arm and hand. I'm not going to do this super precisely, but you have to take that out of the mask. And then once you do that, when you play with the exposure, you notice it's mainly just affecting, I didn't get all this out of here. Excuse me. But it's mainly just affecting the young girl down front or on the left-hand side. So as you're doing those masking things, it does a lot of the work for you. You just have to be careful, and you can look at the, when you're looking at the masks and looking at the overlays to see exactly where it's masked and where it isn't. So you see where I brushed out some of the stuff on the other girl. So I think that is about it. Any questions on the masking tools? And like I say, the same tools exist in Photoshop in the camera raw filter. You got filters, camera raw filter, and all the same masking tools can be done in the camera raw filter, which is this same module. The develop module in Lightroom and the camera raw filter in Photoshop are exactly the same. You do the same things in both. And that should be it. Any questions, John?
Just as a tip, if you do similar edits, landscapes, you can save them as like a template. It will work on other.
Yes.
Because the AI is smart enough to realize, like in a landscape, for example, that your horizon line is here in this shot on down at the bottom, it's 4 o'clock, and your other one is at 10 o'clock. It realizes that it will readjust, or like in this picture, it'll realize the face is over here at 8 o'clock, and it will adjust for 2 o'clock on the other one. Yeah,
I did. As a matter of fact, on this photograph, which is the one we were at, this was also taken at the Denby boat ramp. We took a whole series of these photographs, and went in and edited one. And then where you do sync settings.
Yeah.
It will apply the masks. And it doesn't just, this is the amazing thing that it has done. It doesn't apply the mask like I've got a mask that's, you know, right here, you know, here it is, and it runs down to here, you know, it's this big, it's that, you know, you know, it's got certain features like this one, that's where it goes. When you sync it onto another photograph, if the horizon, that shoreline, is at a different location, it figures out that, okay, that mask is supposed to be on the shoreline. And it will move the mask depending upon where the photograph has the shoreline. And it will apply the filters and the masks differently, but in the same fashion. And I even did one where I straightened one and I had one that wasn't straightened, and it actually put the linear gradient at an angle. It figured out that it was an angle and it fixed it. And then when I rotated the photograph, the mask rotated to it. I mean, the AI does some really, really amazing stuff. And it makes it easier and faster to do a lot of this stuff. There are a lot of really good YouTube videos on using the new masking tools. Matt Kozlowski has done a whole slew of them. Scott Kelby has done a whole bunch of them. The Phlearn people, Phlearn on YouTube, they do Photoshop tutorials and Lightroom tutorials. They've done some things on the masking. There's a whole slew of stuff in here that is above my pay grade in terms of knowledge of how to do this stuff. I was just, like I say, I was just amazed when I was able to take that, you know, the linear gradient and the color range or the luminance, and you can really zero in where that filter is going to be applied. The kind of stuff that used to take us days to brush by hand to try to get it just the way you want it. The AI does a really, really good job. And then, you know, sometimes you have to go in but fixing a little bit's a lot better than trying to do the whole thing by hand. So it's a really good features that are available in Lightroom. The masking tools are available in Lightroom Classic, which is what I'm showing right here. But they're also available on the Lightroom mobile on the computer, on your iPad or Android. Android has tablets, I think, that run Photoshop and Lightroom, and also on your phone. You can do this on your phone if you've got Lightroom mobile on your phone in either Apple or Android. So, I mean, you can go out there and take a photograph on your phone, and then you can sit there and edit it in Lightroom and Photos. You can do Photoshop editing on your phone if you want. So, I mean, this is amazing stuff that we can do. So that's what I got. Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. All right. Okay. Sorry for the folks online, but we actually brought food tonight, and we're gonna have a little social time. So, Laura.
Thank you for setting
Laura,
this
did you
up.
have anything to add?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you setting this up for us and having this remotely. Thank you very much.
Oh, our pleasure, our pleasure. Okay, so we're gonna, I guess, unless there's an objection, we're gonna end the formal part of the evening, and we're gonna eat food and chat. Is that good? Do I have any objections?
Just wanted to share, remind everybody, next month's meeting, Brian Lockwood, otherwise known as JRCC Brian, is going to be doing the talk for us.
And we knew his parents, or we know his mom and his dad passed away, but we knew his parents very well. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Put it it out. It's me.
Or if you want to stick around. No, that's okay, you're good. All right, well, Laura is on, so I'm going to.
Here. So you do dog grooming. What is the going rate?
Right. See, and I. It's on here, someone is living in the house. So, and then I just realized it was the same.